All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. I'm Greg Helbeck. I'm here with Michael Pinter. We are coming to you live from New York State. I'm in the Hudson Valley. Michael's in, dude, your office. Don't, I'm going to guess. Your office is in, not Elmont. It's not in Lawrence. It's in, oh, dude, where's your office? It's in
You?
Hewitt.
Yes.
There we go, right by JFK. Right on. Anyway, we're going to talk today about systems, and this is something, and hopefully you don't hear that word and turn this podcast off, because I'm telling you right now, Michael and I definitely are not system experts, but we have certainly built systems that have allowed us to not have to work as hard as we have used to. So I'm going to talk today about an acquisition system, and then Michael really has his disposition system dialed in because he doesn't even do anything. He's just like selling properties on autopilot. This will be a good show. So if you're brand new and you think this is not relevant to you, trust me, you should start systematizing on day one, because once you start doing deals, when you get in the habit of building systems, it'll be easier to hire people because you already kind of know what to expect. So anyway, Michael, how you doing today, man? How was your well, you don't celebrate Christmas, but how was your, I guess, Christmas time?
It was great. It was fine. It was good. Everything is good. Well, the week before I was in California visiting my daughter and grandson, and looking forward to going to Florida in a couple of weeks for a week. So I'm just in between vacations right now.
Yeah, well, look at you, man. You live a rough life. I'm really thinking about moving to Florida for the long term. Like the more bullshit that happens in New York and California, the more I'm thinking about moving to South Florida, like in a couple of years, just because I just don't see our areas getting better anytime soon. And I mean, Florida is a great place. People
I
love
agree.
it down there.
I've been marketing in Florida most of the year. I'm looking at my first contract I just got in Deerfield Beach, Florida. So I'm excited.
Did that work out with the seller?
I'm in contract. I'm going to go check the property out when I go down in 2 weeks, and he wants to close in the middle of February, so I'm fine with that.
It's amazing. Are you isn't it so easy to sign a contract with someone when you're not in New York?
It is amazing how you can lock up property via DocuSign. It is amazing.
It's
I mean,
unbelievable.
it's not really. Listen, it's not foolproof, right? You can't. If the guy told me no, goodbye. I
Yeah,
don't know
you
what
could.
but
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
it's amazing. I did 2 of those this week, and it almost seems like a scam in my opinion, because I'm like, how does this even make sense? Yeah. Anyway, so systems. I want to talk about systems today because here's the deal. I used to be the kind of guy who would just listen to like tactical real estate, like motivated seller, cash buyer training. And I thought systems were boring and ugly, and I don't want to look into that. But as I've gotten better and as I've grown, I've really became a lot more interested in systems and how to quote unquote systematize my business. I don't think anybody has a business, I mean, if they're being honest with themselves, that runs itself on autopilot where they never have to check in. I think that's very rare. But we have friends who have businesses that are relatively systematized to the point where they spend maybe a few hours a week making sure that there's everything is, the way it should be. And the way that they got there is from systems. So what, in your opinion, we might have mixed definitions. What, if you had to define a system to somebody, like a real estate system, how would you kind of communicate that to get someone to realize what that is? Just so before we get into the meat and potatoes.
I would say systems. I also say it's processes, right?
A process. Yeah. Okay.
A process or a system is a series of procedures that you do to get something done, and ideally you record your processes or your systems so that you can outsource it and not be the only person doing it. So I'm a big fan of Gary Harper and Sharper Solutions, and they're a big thing. So I have a piece of paper behind my thing. When I spoke to Gary a year ago about what my things were for the year. So the first thing was to process map all branches, core processes, and I've done that, right? So I process mapped every single thing I do in my business to the point where hopefully, if somebody if I have to replace somebody on my team, they can figure it out pretty quickly. But also if I can replace myself. So I'm still responsible for acquisitions in my company. I want to eventually not be the only acquisition manager. I want to hire a manager or managers. And hopefully what they're going to be able to do is look at my process map and be able to get a good idea of what they should be doing and how we do it. most people, when they become a solopreneur in a business, they think of a system or a process as something that is cumbersome and is going to make things complicated. Why do I need to write down how I do X, Y, and Z? I know how to do it. But if you really want to grow a business, you have to grow it with people, and you can't assume that people know what to do. So by process mapping, which is a specific process, I use Lucidchart. So I have process maps for every single thing my business does, and there are processes within processes. And then what I'm really doing, and I haven't done fully, is that every single procedure in those processes, I'm trying to record a screencast so that somebody else will see how I do it. Like I just got an email from somebody in my office, like these are the processes that I have to screencast. I got it 3 days ago and I still haven't done it. But the point is, you want to create lists of procedures that are processes to how to get something done. And it's the only real way to be a professional business, right? I'm not saying, we all look at McDonald's, right? McDonald's that hires, kids in high school, and they can run the whole business with, 7 kids in high school and 1 manager who's 19, because they have all these processes, this procedure manual that you get when you work at McDonald's. That's simple. The fries go in the left bucket and you let them sit for 8 minutes, and then you pull them out. Like, you want to make it that simple. Now it's not that simple, right? Our business, especially most businesses, are not as simple as McDonald's. But when you start thinking that, hey, everything I do, I may not want to do, I may not be able to do, I might want somebody else to do it. And I certainly, my time is limited. So if I want to grow the business, I need more people doing it. Then you realize that you really need systems and processes to make a business grow.
Yeah. And you made a good point there, because at the end of the day, like, if you put the work in up front, and I think the reason people don't like doing systems in the beginning is because they feel like it's not going to move the needle, but it's with like a seed you plant, and then it will germinate, and then over time it will turn into something much greater. So, when you take the time to actually systematize your business, and you mentioned something that I really like to do is record my screen. I don't have anything written because I feel like stuff changes so quickly in our industry. So I'll just re-record something, or I'll have someone on my team re-record it themselves. I learned that from a book called Clockwork, which is a fantastic book. I actually just interviewed Mike Michalowicz on my show, which was really cool. He's awesome. Anyway.
Did you read David Richter's new book, The Profit First for Real Estate Investors?
Of course. It's really good. Yeah, that interview is coming out next week. Or no, 2 weeks from now. Yeah.
David a lot.
He's a good guy. Yeah, he's a really good guy. So systematizing, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So what I like to do is I like to record my screen. What I'll do is I'll write a list of the activities that need to happen. And then every activity has a video that goes with it. So like, for example, I was systematizing one of my other podcasts, Pave the Way podcast. If you haven't listened to it, you should check it out. And instead of me like getting on a Zoom call with my assistant and explaining it to her, I just recorded my screen on exactly how to put together a podcast, sent it to her. And then instead of me having to get on a phone call with her, she just sees that system and she duplicates that system. Same thing with talking to sellers. I have a video on inputting a lead into the CRM, like all little things like that. And that's how you can really, people say set it and forget it, right? If someone understands how to do something and they have a video that teaches them how to do it, Mike, actually, the guy who wrote Clockwork, says that you should have them record the next video so then they can teach the next person if that's the case. And that's when they really know it. So I want to cover 2 systems today. I have my acquisition system. You have your disposition system. I think those are 2 things that we're very, uniquely qualified to talk about. So when it comes to a system that's tactical for the real estate business, especially let's just make it New York related, how to get a house at a discount from a motivated seller in New York State, which is a very niche of a niche, as Alex Hormozi would say. At the end of the day, what I like to do, and how I've trained Brett on my team who does the buying for me, is the system is very simple. Leads come in the door from marketing, which is another system within itself. And then when someone speaks to a lead, doesn't matter, and it could be me because I'm still doing some of the acquisitions as well. But so anybody who is speaking with a prospect follows the system. The first call, there's a simple information gathering call. The goal is to not buy a house on the first call. The goal is to simply gather the information, and then the objective is the same on every single call. Are they a qualified lead or are they not a qualified lead? If they are not a qualified lead, they simply go into a follow-up bucket with an offer presented, and that's it. It's basically set it and forget it. However, if they are a qualified lead, if they are qualified and they want to sell their house and there's some sort of problem that we can potentially solve, then what happens is then we get information from them. They get information from us. We always set a next step. And the next step is we're going to hop back on the telephone. and we're going to talk about how we can make you an offer and how this can work for you. And then what happens is then in between the first phone call and the second phone call, I still sit in the seat right now as the underwriter. So I basically analyze the property and like figure out what it's worth, what I can pay for it, if it's a rental, if it's a flip, if it's a wholesale deal. And then I present that number to Brett. He gets on the phone with a prospect, usually the second time, and he makes them an offer. And then at that point, there's another system. If the offer is accepted, then the attorneys get communicated with, they send out an email, then we go back and forth and we, run around for a while with our hair on fire. Eventually a contract gets signed and then the property is technically acquired. So like,
can I ask you two questions? I want to interrupt
you
two questions. First of all, how are you underwriting the file if you haven't seen the inside? What are you basing it on? On what they say?
Yeah, so I base on what they say, and then if it's in an area like I know the Hudson Valley and even San Diego, it's San Diego. Most of the inventory is similar. So like if I know their address and I see where it is, and I know that it's like in a subdivision where they're all 3-2s, and that even happens a lot in Hudson Valley, depending on where it is. I know that I know what that property is going to need because they're telling me, oh, well, it needs an updated kitchen. It needs an updated bathrooms. I see the square footage and I'm like, I've done rehabs of that size. So usually my repairs are like 10 grand off, like if anything, with like a virtual inspection versus like me
based
going
on
in.
the repairs they tell you that it would need.
Correct. And then what will happen is I always actually make it worse than it probably is. So like if they say it needs a lot of work, I'm going to be like, it needs a lot of work. Cause like, I always want to like have the right expectations with that property. And if someone walks it after, which like when you deal sight unseen, sometimes if someone walks it, hopefully they're pleasantly surprised and not disappointed. So like, and if it's a property, I'll tell you what, if it is a property that it does not fit that criteria and it's a little bit of an oddball property, then what normally we will do is we will send a home inspector there in New York to walk the property on our behalf and just verify everything that we said before we sign a contract. And yeah, we have a risk. We have to spend the money.
Take a lot of pictures, the inspector to send
He takes a lot of pictures. He takes a lot of pictures. Or if anything, Brett will go there and take pictures, or we'll have like someone on Craigslist go out there. But I've realized with our real estate system, buying a house, listen, if we went on appointments, I'm sure our conversion rate would be higher. But I have found that buying over the telephone, especially because most sellers aren't even there, it didn't really throw a wrench in our conversion. And Brett can make more offers and I can look at more deals to analyze. And it's just worked out.
You could probably buy more houses doing it virtually for sure. Even though your conversion rate is going to be lower, you'll end up buying more houses.
We end up buying more houses. Yeah.
You have most of your homes are vacant, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, they're either vacant or they're rented. So they're not owner occupied. Normally
Right.
they're not. A few of them are.
Most of mine are owner occupied, so it's different. It's a little bit
Interesting.
different.
That's
But,
interesting.
I don't know why.
I'm buying a house right now that's owner occupied. The guy won't even let me inside. So we had to do everything virtually, but he refused to let me in the house, like refused, because his wife has PTSD and there's all this shenanigans going on there. And I'm doing a rent back, but we sent someone out to the property. We got a septic inspection. Like it all checked out. But yeah, I mean, some of these owner occupant people are nuts.
Did he send you pictures?
Oh yeah, of course. He sent me pictures. The pictures are on Zillow too, actually, because it was like on the market. One of these like unicorn, but yeah, owner occupied properties. I mean, that's when it does make sense to go on those appointments because those sellers are kind of expecting you to come over.
Exactly. Because that was my first question. My second question is, how do you, when you're ending a call and you know that the next step is another call, how do you phrase that to the prospect lead?
I say, hey, Mrs. Prospect, definitely it sounds like this could be a potential fit for you and for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run some numbers, and then at the same time, you can gather up any questions you might have for me. And then when we hop back on the phone next, what we're going to do is I'll present to you some sort of a rough ballpark number. And at that point, you'll kind of have everything you need from me in order to kind of know where our offer is going to be. And then if you like the offer, we can talk about how it would look if we move forward. And if the offer is not a fit for you, that's no problem. We'll just kind of part as friends and go from there. So I let them know on the next call, I'm going to make them an offer. And then obviously before I do that, I like to know what they want. So, hey, before I do my homework, what are you going to want to get for this house? And then that makes me, it just makes it easier to do my underwriting. Cause like if they're asking 350, I can kind of base, like, I can just kind of like, it just gives me more information or Brett more information to kind of make a intelligent offer. Because we had deals sometimes where like literally they were not that motivated, but they're asking a crazy price, and we're like, okay, well, if we give you 250 for this thing, like, can you sign? And they're like, yeah. Well, so that makes the sales process easier, but that doesn't happen most of the time. Most of the time, it's a little bit more of an ongoing follow up.
And you can't pay it, right?
Yeah. So, but that's our acquisition system. So basically, it's a predictable process from start to finish. And if leads come in on the top of the funnel with our system that we have with our 2-call system, and listen, some leads are follow up. I mean, there's obviously more to that. It's a 40-minute podcast. At the end day, money's going to come out of the back end because we have it systematized. But I know on your end, Michael, in Long Island, you have this disposition like system going on, and I just figured we'll share that, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. I really should bring up my process map to see what the hell it is. But my first hire, right? Listen, I did things very differently than a lot of other real estate investors. A lot of real estate investors started wholesaling, then went to rehabbing. I started rehabbing for 4 years, then I went to wholesaling. But my first hire, so most people's first hire is an assistant, or most people's first hire is a cold call or leads manager. My first hire was a dispositions manager, because I realized that I hate talking to buyers and I hate talking to cash buyers. I hate both of them because, in my opinion, they're almost always full of shit. And I don't like the whole dance and the game. So I found someone, and it was the first hire, which is rare. And we should talk more about hiring people, because that's a big part of systems and outsourcing.
Oh, yeah.
So he really takes the brunt of all the things I don't want to do. So when we lock something up and we have it under contract, sometimes we know that we have to close. Sometimes we think we have to close, and sometimes we hope not to close. So what we'll do is we'll send it out to the list. Ken will send it out to my cash buyers list and see if we can get any bites on it. Sometimes, we buy a lot of properties that are occupied. So there are some investors that'll take them occupied, some investors that will never touch anything occupied. But for some investors, if the prices are right, they'll still take it occupied. So we'll throw it out to the list and see what we get. And then Ken will come back to me and say, this is where we are. And then we'll make a decision as to whether to close or not. Now, if we end up closing on it, then really the question is whether we have to do the work or not. So Ken really hasn't done a lot of the project management yet, but I hope he will, or I may have to hire somebody if we buy more, because I'm closing a lot of properties now that I really don't like to. But if we don't have to do any work, then Ken will just throw it on the market right away. And he's I'm a real estate broker. He's a realtor that works for me, and he does all the showings, and I'm really not involved at all. And he'll just come back to me and say, here are our best offers. This one, is a little less, but it might be better, that kind of thing. And then we'll make a decision together. But the truth is, Ken is pretty much at the point where he can make those decisions himself. I could almost not even be involved in the situation at all, which is what I'm hoping to get to, right? I'm really hoping to get to a point where, he'll just tell me we sold it or we're in contract, and that would be great.
That is amazing.
That's what I hope. Because I really don't like the, in my area, there's a lot of let me put this
bullshit artists.
Gingerly, yeah, a lot of bullshit artists, people who almost believe that, and they do this on both ends, right? So that when they go to see a house, they start pointing out everything wrong. Oh, this paint is peeling. Oh, this window may not close. And they do the same thing when they come to our house to buy it. Oh, you're asking so much money. This isn't worth anything. I can't refrain from either physically punching them in the face or just yelling at them and arguing with them. And I don't want to do that. So
yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah.
I hate being lectured, right? I still have some interaction. So when somebody does that, I go, listen, if you don't want it, it's fine. Don't take it, right? But don't lecture me on what my price is. I already have offers above it. So that's the part of business I don't like. And I really think that when you start thinking about in your business what to outsource, there's really two things you got to start thinking about. And that's the things you really don't like, the things that really drain your energy, and the things that you're not good at, right? If you're just not, if you're not good at talking to sellers, then you probably should think about getting somebody else to talk to sellers. Like I'm okay at talking to sellers. I'm not half as good as you are. You're much better than me, but I'm doing it now until I can get somebody else to do it. And hopefully when I find somebody else to do it, they'll be better than me at it, and our conversion rate will go higher. But I really think that when you're growing a business from more than a solopreneur, you have to sort of think of the things that you're either not able to do, right? If you have so many leads that you can't qualify them, then you're going to need a leads manager. The things that you hate doing and the things that you're just not good at doing, and that's how you think about growing systemize. And I don't know if it's systemizing or systematizing, but when you put systems in your business and you're outsourcing, that's what you should think about.
Yeah, no, and you mentioned something too. I mean, it's at the end of the day, like hiring is basically like direct relative of systems, right? Because like if you hire somebody without systems, you're just going to be running around with your hair on fire all day.
For
You know
sure.
what I mean?
I was in Salt Lake City, um, in the middle of the middle of summer. It was 100 degrees, and both Jason Lewis and Cody Hoffine, who both have multiple seven-figure businesses buying in Utah, both said. I look at these guys and they have big teams, 15 guys, and these guys are they don't do less than $100 to $200,000 a month. That's a bad month for them. And I look at them and I go, wow, these guys I really admire. They must have everything dialed in. And they both said that whenever there was some part of their business that they just assumed was working and they weren't on top of it, it ended up turning to shit. And both, like Jason said, I just did this. I had some people that were doing something. Jason has like 27 VAs. And I gave a group of them another thing to do, and I just assumed they would know how to do it. And then 2 months later, I checked, and they just were doing it wrong because he hadn't put the processes and systems that we're talking about in place to make sure that they knew what they were doing, and he wasn't on top of it. So whenever you're going to hire somebody, and it's important to realize, and this is a weird thing, and I thought about this recently when I was talking to somebody about hiring. I go, when you hire someone, you have to really invest time into it.
Oh my gosh, totally.
And be on top of them. But at the same point, you also have to understand they may not be the right person, right? You have to kiss some frogs to get to the prince. And it's unlikely that the first person you're going to hire is going to be the right person. You and I have both hired plenty of people that didn't work out.
Yeah.
And if you get discouraged, and I know people who get discouraged by it, I hired somebody, but he stunk and I don't want to deal with that anymore. I'm like, you almost have to have both of that in your head. Like, this guy might not work out, but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that they do work out. And that's not an easy thing to do, right? It's not an easy thing to say, well, I'm going to invest a half hour a day into making sure this guy knows what he's doing. And then in a month say, this guy still doesn't know what he's doing. I got to get rid of him. But you have to be able to do both. And to be a good leader and a good business owner, you have to work both sides of that seesaw. And it's not a simple thing. And I was explaining to someone and he's like, well, if I don't think he's going to work out, then why am I investing time in him? I go, because he'll never work out unless you invest time in him. He goes,
you have to do that to know. Yeah.
Right. But he goes, once I invest time with him, then why am I going to let him go? I go, because he's not good. I mean, you have to do both of that. And it's not an easy thing. I think people don't talk about it a lot. I think it's one of the most challenging things about running a business is to have both those things in mind. To be able to say that someone's not, that I'm going to hire someone. This may not be the right guy, but I'm going to invest the time and put the processes and systems in place to make sure that he does as good as he can.
That's why people, and I've had this limiting belief in this story running around my head for a while until recently this year. It's like, oh, well, it's going to be too much work to hire somebody. I can just do it all myself. And that was a bullshit story I was telling myself for 4 years. And I, made good money over the last 4 years, but I wasn't getting to that next level. And this year, like magic, I hired people and made the most money I've ever made in my life. Right. And it's like, wow, isn't that interesting? So it's like I had this bullshit story playing in my head all day long, like one of those fucking and then the thing pops out of the box. So like I had to just admit I actually had COVID-19 in January of 2021, and I'm sitting in my hotel room because I had to isolate like a sheep. And I was like writing down in a journal, like, I got to hire a fucking assistant, like, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. I committed to that shit, went through a hiring process. I used Wise Hire, filtered the shit out of them, found a good assistant. She's been with me for almost a year. Same thing, hired an acquisitions person because we had too many leads coming in to where I said, if I wanted to have some sort of a fucking life besides doing business, I cannot be calling sellers back all day. It's literally in it because my assistant does that. But when she's not working, it's on to me. So it's like, it got to the point where I'm like, if I want to get to the next level and I want to spend the type of money that I really want to and can spend on marketing, I am doing myself, my future self, and my company, which is a separate living, breathing entity, a disservice. And I got pissed off and I got angry. And that got me to actually change, and it was uncomfortable, but it's still like to this day, it's like, listen, am I more of a manager now? Yeah, I'm more of a manager, but it's like, I'm still doing the work in my business, but half of the time it's like me just making sure that everything is like, running smoothly in the off. Like, I just look at the numbers now a lot. Like, I'll look at I love that book, man.
I just went through the whole book. We had a book club in Investor Fuel. We went through.
That's a great book.
We just finished it. We're starting it again on Tuesday. And in the book, he's like, this concept of passive income from a business.
Oh,
he goes, You have to be, he goes, you want to work on your business, not in your business. He goes, you got to be in it or things are going to go bad. And that's the truth. And we all have this dream. Well, I'm going to build this team and then I'm going to sit on a beach and someone's going to call me and say, oh, we just deposited another $12 million to your account, sir. Thank you. Hang up, give me another pina colada. But that's not how it works.
That's not how it works, man. I would be pissed I would not be happy if I was doing that because human beings are meant to fucking work. I like going on vacation.
How long can you sit on a beach before you go? How many people, who's the guy who did 7-figure flipping? You know, he sold a business to Bill Allen. He lasted.
Oh, Justin Williams.
He lasted, I think, 5 months or 4 months. And then he called Ben and said, I can't take it anymore. I got to do something. Like you and I for sure are never going to sit. We like to sit on a beach for like a week or two, maybe a month. But after that, we got to get back.
After that, I'm going to do more deals. I can't go without this. It's like a fixating. It's like anyway, and that's the thing too. People don't understand that, like, even if you have a fucking team, you're still going to be doing shit in your business. You're not going to be like going for, like, I have friends, they go for fucking hikes at 2:00 in the afternoon in their underwear and fucking walk all over the place. And I'm like, shouldn't you be fucking working? Like, what the fuck? They have money, they're rich, but I'm like, I don't, they ask me, they're like, you want to go on a hike? I'm like, fuck no, I want to work. Like, I don't want to go, I can go on as many hikes as I want at this point, but I choose to fucking work because I love it.
Of course. And the truth is that we think that, you know, we look at these other companies that are successful or bigger than us, and the people there don't stay forever, right? Keep people leave. Keep people leave keep people leave and start their own business to compete against you. Keep people have other things going on. So you can't, the idea that you're not going to be managing it is absurd. You're still going to need to manage it. Like, even I know people that, you remember Jamie Woolley? She was part of this for a long time ago.
Yeah, of course, in Texas, right?
Right. So she was like my idol because she built the business really fast. She went to got like 100 deals a year in like 2 years. And then she hired a COO and said, I'm only going to work in the business like 2 hours a week. Like, I'm like, no man would ever have the humility to do that. Right? Only a woman could do that. Right?
Yeah. Right.
This place could fall apart without me. But she was like, fuck it. I'm going to try on top of it, but I'm going to have this other person running it and I'll play with it. So, like, she was my idol. But the truth is, she's not working in 2 hours a week anymore. She's back in it. Like a lot of people are. And she started other businesses too, but you have to be on top of it and managing. I had like a half-hour call with like my lead intake team. And like when I spend that time, sometimes it's annoying to spend the time, especially when you repeat the same thing over. But I know in the front part of my brain that that's the best use of my time, right? If I can make an employee more efficient or better at something they do, if I spend a half hour on it, that means I'm getting a 7.5. What is it? It's a 15 times return, right? Because 15 other half hours of the day, they're going to be working better than they were before. So there's nothing I can do that's better leverage than helping my team do their job better. Nothing I can do, right? Even if I'm going, even to lock up a deal and make the money, it's probably better that I'm training the team, because assuming everybody on the team is doing something important in the process, then if I make them better at it, just a little better, then that's the best use of my time. And you have to look at that when you're hiring somebody and when you're onboarding somebody and when you're training somebody. Like, you have to do that. But at the same point, as I said before, you have to understand a lot of people are not going to work out. You had AMs that didn't work out, right? You went through.
I went through a hiring fucking ring, bro. It was, and I got jaded, and then I said, "Oh, this sucks. I'm gonna be a 7-figure guy by myself," and it was bullshit. You know, it was total bullshit. And I'm like, I want to make another point you kind of mentioned there. So when it comes to training people, you just said something that's so freaking factual. The more time you pour into your team, assuming they're the right fit, it's like it's a leverage multiplier. We meet for 15 minutes a fucking day at 8 in the morning or 11 o'clock, whatever the hell the time. What people are all over the time zone in our business, so it's fucking 8 a.m. Pacific, and we spend 15 minutes. We go over all the shit for the day, where it's at, where we're at with this business, that, blah, blah, blah. And then every Monday for 30 minutes, me and Brett, we do a sales meeting. We look at all the top deals. We make sure we're working on all those deals. I'm giving him an update on the dispositions. I'm giving him an update on the rentals. I'm giving him an update on all this bullshit we got going on. And then we do a sales training. We do a role play. We role play a scenario. And me spending 30 minutes role playing something, that is sharpening his axe, my axe. So like, training your team, and it's going to get you better too, because becoming a leader is a skill. It's not easy. It's super hard, because you have people literally depending on you for income. So it's like, it makes you need to perform better. Right. So now I'm like, oh shit. Like, if I'm going to, let's say I'm like, oh, I want to go hiking with my idiot friends at 2:00. And it's like, if I do that, could I do that? And would it make a difference in the grand scheme of things? Probably not. But I'm really taking away the opportunity to help my team and my business grow to the next level. So therefore, I'm going to decline that opportunity, even though I have the freedom to do it, which is another bullshit thing I can get into on a later podcast. This whole bullshit. Anyway, so because I want to help them and I want to see them win. And I love sharing the victory. And I tell you one thing, making money on your own is fun. Making money with people on your team is even more damn fun. And I can just spread the money around a little bit. So it's not just me sitting like Scrooge McDuck in the money points.
Because as you said, it makes you better because you have to teach something, you really have to get good at it. And if you're not 100% sure of something, it brings it out. And it also, if you have multiple people doing the same thing, it separates the better players from the non-better players. So I had 3 people in lead intake, and as I spent more time talking to them, I realized one of them really wasn't up to stuff, and I got rid of her. But I got that we were spending a lot of time on the phone and realizing that 2 of the people were really good at keeping to the script and one wasn't. So training your team members is, I think, the highest leverage use of your time. But the 100%. Irony of it is you still need to be able to not use sunk costs as a reason to keep somebody on who shouldn't be there. And it's not easy to fire people. We both let people go, but even though you've invested time in someone, sometimes they're just not good.
They're just not going to work. It's like if people get married and divorced and then they're like, I never want to get married again. It's like, well, what the fuck? Like, I'm not a marriage expert, for God's sake, but like, it's the same kind of thing, What?
No, it's true. No.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that you probably spoken to, first of all, you were somebody like this, and I've spoken to a million people like this, where they hired somebody for position X. It was a bad situation. And then they go, well, it's not worth the time, right, to train.
Yeah.
And I understand feeling that way. I do. I honestly do, right? I don't know if I'll ever hire a COO, but if I ever did, it would be so that they could take the time to train people and I wouldn't have to. But the point is that it's almost certain that the first person you hire for any role
is not going to work out.
Right. But at the same point, you need to commit to them to give them everything that you can so that they're successful.
Exactly. And then the upside to that, I know we're speaking a lot about the transparency about hiring, but the upside, when you have someone who's really fucking good, it is so amazing because I will go to the gym in the middle of the day and work out. So I'm unavailable for a while. And I'll go back, check my phone, and there's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 boxers, and they're just going back and forth together, updating. So technically the business is working without me for an hour. But I just think this whole myth of I want to have my business. I think that's a cool vision. And if you can do it, I think it is cool. It's like the saying that retire. I want to retire when I'm 30. It's well, that'd be cool. And I could probably will be there, but it's I'm not going to want to do that. That's just not, it's not something that people
you want to be able to retire.
Able to retire or able to work 1 hour a week. But it's not like
retirement is crazy, right? The concept of retirement is that you work in a job that you hate for the most important years of your life. And then at some point they give you a percentage of that as a pension, and then you don't do anything anymore. To me, it sounds nuts. Why don't you just spend the best years of your life doing thing that you love and do it until you die? That's what my thought is. I don't want to retire. I could do this till I die and I'd be thrilled. I love doing what I do. And why should I ever stop? It doesn't make any sense.
Well, that's why most people get themselves in trouble when they go through the regular system, because it's they don't understand how to quit. And that's something I've learned too. This is a little bit of a tangent, but a lot of people think the same things as entrepreneurs, but they believe this bullshit story. They're telling themselves oh, I can't do that. It's if you fucking believe that bullshit, obviously that's going to become your reality. And it's I have people who I went to high school with or college with or whatever, and they're oh, I hate my job. I'm making good money, but I'm like, well, dude, come up with a fucking way to get out of there eventually. And it's you chose to have your job. No one put a gun to your head and said, oh, go work on Wall Street for 200 grand a year. You chose.
They feel like they have no way out, right? My options are investing for 3 more years. The big corporations are smart because they have all these
golden handcuffs, man.
All these retention systems that they do for you. You get your bonus only if you stay for a certain amount, and you only get the stock if you stay a certain amount. So they're not stupid. They don't want people to leave either. But that whole thing of working in a job that you hate for your 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, so that you can get some kind of pension when you're 60, and then do what? You're probably gonna live another 30 years. What the hell are you gonna do for 30 years? It's just crazy.
Make comments on Facebook. Most people who talk shit on Facebook are over 60 because they got nothing to do all day. It's like, anyway.
I make comments on Facebook. I'm only turning 51 in 2 weeks.
Well, you're a young guy still. And you know, you're loving what you do. We're both loving. That's another thing why I feel like we are highly qualified to talk about this business, because we make the lion's share majority of our income from actually buying and selling and renting, not selling shovels. And we both really like this business. So it's like a combination for the truth to come out, you know?
I agree wholeheartedly. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was our masterclass on systems and hiring. I hope people, I know for sure people got value today. So if you did get value, please do us a favor, leave a review on iTunes, leave a review on wherever the hell you listen to, share the show. This is how, and I'll tell you what, people listening, this is how these shows grow. They grow from sharing, which is social proof. So whether you want to copy and paste this to other people, or you want to just take a picture of this episode and put it on social media, besides all the SEO stuff that we do, this is how it grows. So if you get value and you think it's relevant, please share it. That's all we ask for. Obviously, we don't charge a dime for this show. And until the next episode, I'm Greg Helbeck with Michael Pinter signing off.
Bye-bye.